How was lunch?
Delicious.
Awesome.
And diverse.
Very good.
There's this much food and this many people, but this is our first time in person for 2 years, yes. So we weren't quite sure. We have been very fortunate to have up to 220 people at these little events. And we're fortunate to see some folks again, and we're even more fortunate to see first-timers, so welcome. My name is Toni. My topic is obviously energy efficiency in the historic home. And we laughed when we were running this bulletin out, the preparation for this event, they said historic homeowners, because they were titling this for historic homeowners. I said, I don't think that's good. I said, you're calling the person historic. You're not calling the home historic. So we kind of flipped it around. So this is all about the historic homes. And as we go through these PowerPoints, as I tend to yammer up here, if you have a question, call it out if we are in agreement with that. Call it out when you think about it, because it's likely if you're thinking about it, somebody else may be thinking about it too. And I know that these historic homes are all unique unto themselves, so I'm going to be talking in generalized terms. And if I mash these buttons too quick, who knows what's going to happen. This is not Covington, this is not Cincinnati, but this is the best representation I could find identifying green homes and all the energy efficiencies, all energy use consumption behind it. So the very first thing that we have to talk about is, that's nothing, right? And the very first thing we need to talk about is the construction of the home. The older homes pre-1940 typically have what's called a balloon frame construction.
Whoever it is doesn't buy their own tires.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's not a fire, it's just a
Just him smoking his tires.
Yeah.
You know, people are unique, aren't they? People are unique. Good thing there's a rainstorm coming and it'll put all that out. So does everybody know what balloon frame housing is? It's very interesting. And I'm going to tell you one of the reasons why they switched from balloon frame to platform frame, but don't think about it as an issue in your home. Your home has obviously lasted for a long period of time, so it's safe because it's lasted this long. In balloon frame construction, they built the walls. They built the first floor, the second floor, the frame of that wall in full boards. Then they raised those full boards up, and then they built another wall, full wall, and attached it. So these are single member, wooden members, single, from first floor to second floor or even higher, depending upon the size of your house. Then they built the interior of the bottom floor, the second floor, the third floor. So you have exterior, then they went to build interior-wise. Then you go to platform frame, which is the more modern homes, and that's what this is. So on a platform frame, whoops, I didn't want that yet. This is platform frame. When you do a platform frame, you build the floor, then you build a wall, then you build the next floor, then you build the next wall, then you do the frame. One of the reasons why they switched from balloon frame, number one, it was in the 40s. That was original timber. There was wars. So long timber is gone. All of the construction was needed for war efforts, all sorts of things for population-wise. And then for the firefighters and the people that tend to take care of houses when they go flame up, a balloon frame house has an interior chase through it. So you have the inside wall, you have the chase, then you have the exterior cladding. And I know that there's a variety of exterior claddings. There's plaster, there's boards, there's stone, but for the most part, anything that was built before 1940 is a balloon frame. On a balloon frame house, if you get a fire, that air wafts up that balloon and fuels the fire. That's why older homes just burn so quickly. Then you move to a platform frame house, and everything is, you create a different kind of thermal and pressure boundary. The unique things about older homes, these balloon frame, is, first of all, the craftsmanship is well done. And they have the different uniquenesses of them. You have knee wall. You have attic planes and knee walls, which you do not get in platform frame housing. In a platform frame house, you just have the ceiling and the attic. Then you have the rim joist. And the reason I'm bringing up the attic plane and the rim joist or sill plate is the portion at the bottom. Oh, nice. Portion at the bottom that's where then you have either a basement or a crawl space. It's that member that's sitting on top of that stone wall that you have in the basement. And why is the attic plane important and then the rim joist is important? Because in energy efficiency, you're trying to create a parallel thermal and pressure boundary. And think about it when you're trying to keep in the heat, all the hot air that your furnace has generated, that you're paying to keep your house warm in the winter and then cool in the summer. If you don't deal with the attic plane first, you're going to have all these convective movements on hot air and cold air. Do you have a question?
No.
Oh, I thought. So again, if you have a question, holler it out. So think about it when you're outside and you've got this, it's one of the really, really cold days in Cincinnati, and you have your bubble coat on and you've got your gloves on, and but you're freezing. You're still freezing. You're losing all your energy from your head. Put a hat on. So that really is the kind of the number one principle when in creating efficiency in your home and creating the thermal and pressure boundaries and eliminating all that air wafting. Put a hat on it, so it's the lid up in the attic plane. And then down, the second is the rim joist. Once you tend to temper the movement of air in the attic, you continue to get it through the rim joist. And I'll show pictures. All of this will show up in real life pictures. There is your platform frame. This comes from the Department of Energy, and this is Air Movement 101. Why does it matter if air moves in and out of your house? Hot air always goes to cold air, high pressure always goes to low pressure, and moisture always goes to dry. These lines represent money. So if you're charging your furnace or your air conditioner in whatever season you're in, and you're powering up all that store-bought air and you haven't done anything with your lid, it's either going out the lid, or in the summer, it's coming in and through the attic plane and then through the rim joist. Better representation. You want an alignment of your thermal and pressure boundaries. That way you can keep everything in the living space, where you're paying for it. Another really good way to determine if you have a very tight house or you're not moving air, you're not losing money in the attic or at the rim joist or through any of the fenestrations, look at your Duke Energy bill. These are the big flows. You will get a consistency, and your consistency is your lights and your appliances and your computers, et cetera, et cetera. But all this other flow is when your air conditioner is jumping up to create a cool space, a cool living space. Look at the gas. The gas is going because you want to keep your house. This is mine. This is my house. I keep my house at 68 degrees in the winter and 72 in the summer. This was before I did the energy conservation measures. But that is a very clear representation if you're losing money just through airflow through your house. If you do your utilities online, just go to page 3, or at least that's what it was on page 3. It'll show you this bar graph, and you'll be able to see that's a big indicator. That's where your money goes. That's where your money goes. Most of your money is spent in heating and cooling your house. That's why you want to create an alignment of your thermal and your pressure boundaries, so the money that you're spending to heat or cool stays in. We will talk a little bit about some of this other stuff, but this is and I don't sell furnaces, I don't sell air conditioners, I just make it so that you can have a more comfortable home. We all have one of these, right? Scuttle, hatch, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes they're tucked up into a closet. You have to move a lot of stuff to get up into that hatch. So that piece of plywood is what separates the attic. In this summer months, when it's 90 degrees out here, it's probably 180 degrees in your attic. That piece of plywood is the only thing that's keeping that attic heat from your living space. That's what it looks like with a thermal camera. That's what it looks like. And I brought my IR camera just to show do a little demo on how heat moves to cold. So indulge me, we'll go through it. Has anybody been in their attic space? What does it look like? Nasty! Nasty! This one's a wonderful one. That would be the best job ever, because on this one you can see all of those penetrations from your living space into your attic space is a hole. It's a hole in your envelope. And all you need to do to fix that hole is put caulk around it. If you're caulking these fenestrations, these holes, these penetrations, whatever you want to call them, and it does happen to be a wire, you want to use a fire-rated caulk because it's a wire. I don't know. That's what we typically see. It's a hot mess up there. We see there's inconsistency in the depth. There's inconsistency in the material. There's penetrations all over the place. These look like the recessed cans, which is hot. They get really, really hot. This looks like a can that's been boxed. All this wiring going up through here, and the insulation is a little confused. You want consistency and level through it. That's what it looks like with an IR camera. I think this might be a good time to run a demo on the IR camera. So has anybody ever been in their attic space or done work in it? And I'm doing this on purpose. So talk to me while my IR camera is coming up. It is a very, very, very difficult job. So if you have the luxury or have the ability to hire somebody else to do it, and I'm not selling anything, do it. Hire a professional to do it. This should take a hot always goes to cold, high pressure always goes to low pressure, and moisture always goes to dry. I am 98 degrees. This room is probably 72. Someone want to grab this camera and look at I'll pull my hand off, and then we'll share it. Ready?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 76.
Pull the trigger or something?
He's seeing what's happening here is when you, and I really like the window guys. I really, really like the window guys. I think that you can end up saving money not buying new windows, but getting a storm window. And the reason I say that is, in an IR camera, it might be jumping all around, but when you are thinking about temperature changes and heat loss and heat gain, you can stand in front of a triple pane window and freeze to death. Hot always goes to cold. In this picture, there's confusion in this insulation too. So when you do,
It went away.
oh, all right, I'll try again.
Yeah, was he supposed to take a picture?
No, he was just looking at it. It was just a demo
Oh, okay.
to show, because I'm throwing pictures, IR pictures in here, and it's like, what the heck am I looking at?
Oh.
You're looking at temperature differences.
Right.
And so my hand at 98 is going to show up on there.
Not from here. It says 73.5.
So hot always goes to cold. Hot always goes to cold, high pressure always to low pressure, et cetera, et cetera. You have, if you look in your attic space and you see where that chimney is going up, you have an open space from your attic all the way down to your basement. If you look into, and that matters because the cool air and warm air is moving through those spaces. One that's hardly ever talked about is why you don't want to share that space is because it's nasty up there. You don't want to share, as that air wafts around, all the detritus and the particulates are moving with it. So this is a chase. This is an opportunity to air seal, block it off, and then put more insulation on it. How many people think they have a ghost in their house? And that ghost is when those knee walls, my knee, it pops open all the time. I have to tie it closed or I have to put a headboard in front of it. It's just because of the air moving. And for me personally, I would love that it was a ghost, but I think more likely that it's just air moving. Knee wall, that is considered outside space, only protected by the roof line. Living space, so insulation, 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 and insulation. Your attic must breathe as well as your living space must breathe. You need to be able to have proper air changes per hour, and there's mathematical calculations on how much interior clean air you need to exchange on an hourly basis. That's a building performance standard, and whoever, if you're getting an energy audit, ask them to run a blower door, and they'll tell you what your house should be breathing and what your house is actually breathing, and the difference is an opportunity for improvement. So
What did you call that?
it's called a blower door test, and it's air changes per hour, and it's just a matter of the CFMs moving through your house. So the calculations are done on the location where you live, the height of your house, and then they put all the calculations in and tell you how much it should breathe. Your attic should breathe as well, but the two should not communicate with each other. You don't want your attic closed up because everything will warp because it's too hot in there. You don't want your house tightened up too tight because that cold that you got from your kid, you're going to give it back to your kid's going to give it back to you. You need to change that air and have fresh air in it. So there is a standard.
Got a question?
Yes.
So rather than put insulation so your attic ceiling is like this, so you wouldn't put insulation up along the wall of the ceiling, you would put it.
You put insulation here, but you don't put it in every single rafter because this would communicate with this, and there's mathematical calculations on how much on the older homes on this gutter plane. There's typically the siding, but it's falling right. The name of it's falling right out of my head. But the wood that's put underneath the eaves.
Soft.
But there's a type of wood that's used in the older homes that goes along a big vertical length. But anyway, there's enough air penetrations in there to keep this lower level breathing. You have to have air down at the low point and air up at the high point on an attic, on a roof line. Yes, ma'am.
We have a question from Zoom. Yolanda asks, my house does not have an access to the attic, what should I do?
Check your closets first, because it's most likely that it's hidden in a closet, most likely, yes.
Well, 5 years ago, when we moved here, our house is about 140 years old, and our first heating bill for the 1 month was $750 for 1 month. I said, we can't live here. So it all turned out to be like you're saying, the attic. There was no attic crawl space like they just asked. We had to cut a hole in our
Then
attic.
here's your answer, tell Yolanda, he'll tell you exactly what to do.
We had to cut a hole, go up there, and it was absolutely just bare, like the other picture you showed, just bare with all coal dust and everything up there from years and years of heating and whatever. So we cut the hole, and then we had someone blow in the insulation,
Yes.
and it brought that heating bill down to $250 a month.
You should be our sales guy. So I have to tell you, honestly, I have never come across a house that did not have access. So that's 2 times that I've heard it. So hopefully you answered her question. But when you get an attic like that, one of those first pictures that has nothing, you are literally feeding the outside. I bet you had. Your trees must have been well bloomed, and there must have been lots of birds in those trees because you're giving them the warmth and the coolness. So these are all knee-ball crazy things. This is what we typically see. So when you're kind of doing an at-home assessment on if you're losing air or air is moving that you don't really know, look for spider webs, number 1. Because spiders always hang out where air is moving, because that's how they feed. If you go into any space and you see this, that means air is moving, because dirt is traveling across the airflow and landing and getting hung up in it. Don't mess with this. This is fiberglass, and it is literally cotton candy spun glass. If you're doing, and we'll go to health and safety in a minute, but this is what we see a lot. Thermal and pressure boundaries, that's good. Air seal first, clean it up, and then put a vapor barrier over it so it stays nice and clean. So we've taken care of the attic planks, we've taken care of the roof, we have sealed off all penetrations using expandable foam, using polystyrene, because that chase you would have to use something that's fire rated and bigger. You can't caulk it with this kind of stuff, it'll drop right down. So there's all sorts of materials that can use to fix the different levels and sizes of the penetration. Anytime you're around wires, use fire rated, it's probably overkill, but better to be in the construction trade, they call it belt and suspenders method. Better to err on the side of caution than not. This is the next opportunity is at that rim joist down at that sill plate. It is the piece of wood. That's a piece of wood. That's the separation between, again, you and the outside. Again, an IR representation on the change. Even if it's a little difficult to understand what these temperatures mean, you can just see the variances as the heat gain and the heat loss in the different materials. There's your rim joist. That's the outside. Air, and the easiest and the quickest way to take care of that rim joist is the pink foam. Cut it to fit, yam it in there, it doesn't have to be beautiful, and then put air sealing caulk around it. So it will take care of, there's air, quite obvious air moving around. Now we won't talk about that, because we're not talking about health and safety at this point, but that doesn't look so good. See all the air? You can tell by the amount of dirt and detritus that's in these spaces that they're moving air. Does anybody have a crawl space? Those are so tough. Those are so tough. Because moisture always goes to dry. In some cases, the crawl spaces You have to be like a coal miner to get in there and fix them. And in a lot of cases, the crawl space is nothing but mud. Then you have the frame floor, and the moisture in the mud is wicking up to that frame floor, and people wonder why their floors become boggy. It's because they're rotting. And it's very tough. You've got to put down plastic, you have to make sure it overlaps, you have to take it up a wall, and again, this representation on that IR camera, it's a little difficult, but you can see the air difference or the temperature differences. That's a pretty picture, tongue in cheek. That's what a crawl space, that's a crawl space. This, you have to take it up. That's going into, typically crawl spaces are over kitchens or over an entire, at least a partial of the first floor. If you don't cover the floors, I just mentioned, that will rot out. It is best to insulate it, and it is best to put a vapor barrier, the wrap, house wrap, just to keep it nice and tidy. How many people use their poor dog to keep the air from flowing down through the chimney? Poor thing. Or have to tie it closed with a plastic bag. That's all because of air movement. All because of air movement. If you have a then I used to have, and I lost it at one presentation, it's called a chimney balloon. If you have an operating chimney and you want to make sure that your air conditioning is not going up and down, it's called a chimney balloon. It sits up in the box. You blow it up. You actually blow it up like a balloon, and it expands, and then it keeps the air from moving, the cold air or the hot air coming down and get into your living space. And you think, oh my gosh, well, what if I turn a fire on the next winter and forget to take that chimney balloon out? There's a little red placard that you put inside on the grate that says chimney balloon in place. But it makes a difference. It keeps that cold air, that hot air from wafting down into your living space. This is a picture of the penetrations that are not in the attic plane and not on the rim joist plane. It's just throughout the interior space. And as much as we love plumbers, and their job is very difficult, they tend to make a hole this big for a pipe this big, only because their job is so difficult. Air is moving through that balloon frame wall, down through underneath the sink, underneath the base cabinet. That is just purely trim. A piece of trim is missing, and when we did a blower door, there was so much air blowing whoosh. That's because it was traveling through that balloon frame. Easy to fix. You can polystyrene that whole space, or you can caulk it. That's an IR representation that's very easy to see. Weather stripping is huge. It's huge. It's a nuisance to put on, but it makes a big difference. This is what you were talking about, somebody blowing it up. So you want to get whether you do it yourself, and you can go to all the equipment from Home Depot or Lowe's. The typical material is not fiberglass, cellulose. You know all those magazines and newspapers and cardboard boxes that you throw away? That's what this is. It's exactly what it is. And they put I'm losing my words today, something that tries to prohibit bugs from living in it. And when in this area of the country, the code is R38. And R means resistance, so it's resistance to and I'll show you a slide too, so it'll show you that. It's a resistance to the air movement. If code were given a grade, it would be given a C. While you have somebody that's in your attic, They make sure that they put the tape measures and blow up to an R50. So you're looking at from what you have to 15 inches worth of cellulose. This guy, that's really the best picture I could find. One of the pictures, and that was purposeful. When you're up in your attic, bugs have been up there, mice or rodents have been up there, there's likely a snake that's died up there. Tyvek suit, goggles, everybody's used to wearing a mask now, and gloves. So not only are you protecting yourself from what's underneath all that stuff, when you come down, you can take it all off so you're not commingling all that dirt and junk with the rest of your family. And if you do this, how dusty was it in your house after they did that, after they blew the insulation in?
The coal dust was for months coming down out of that attic into the rest of the house.
This is a very, very, very dusty process. But if you're going from a $700 a month down to a $250 a month utility bill, I'll take my little Swiffer and take care of things, right? Take care of business. This caulking, it makes a huge, huge difference. When you, the challenge, go home and look underneath your sink. Look at that hole. Look at that pipe. Caulk it. This is what I was talking, this right here is damming in the attic. So we were talking about the attic must breathe. In the rafters, in the framing members on the roof line, some of them are sealed off and some of them have dams in it because you want that cool air to come up. Then it's dammed off and another one. And that's a mathematical calculation, and anybody that's doing any attic work for you knows that. And you'll know if they know it by asking the questions. Do you dam? Do you seal? Do you do this? Do you put a ruler in there? Do you do a blower door pre-air sealing and a blower door after air sealing? And that's the kind of stuff that will really indicate the kind of job you're getting. Because you can expect, especially in these older homes, we've gotten anywhere from 35 to 50% airflow reduction, and that translates to dollars. So that's a rim joist, that's in the attic, that's anywhere you find a penetration, caulking around these windows, and I love windows. I'm not to say anything negative against the window guys because they're amazing, but you can get an improved R value without replacing your windows. So you can do all sorts of things, up to and including drapery. There is the 40, where are we,
We're yellow.
38 to 60. And if they're blowing in there, this is the cheap stuff. What's expensive on those jobs is the labor, because it's a very, very, very difficult job. So then we go, we've taken care of the attic plane, it's all nice and tight, it's breathing the way it's supposed to breathe, we've taken care of the rim joist, it's all beautiful, air isn't moving, we've done the calculations and we have our indoor air qualities the way it's supposed to be. Okay, now let's go look at the rest of the systems. Does everybody gets their furnace, what is it, tuned up every year, right? Right? That is a gas appliance. It has gas in it. It can send off noxious fumes. Everybody has a CO monitor really, really close to this, right? What is the first sign of carbon monoxide poisoning? Confusion. And you know what the first thing you're going to do when you hear that CO monitor going off in the middle of the night? You're going to say a few choice words. Then you're going to get up and you're going to push the button or take the battery out. So I'm here to tell you, if you hear a carbon monoxide detector going off, you can say your choice words. I'm okay with that. Open the window. Open the window and take a breath of fresh air, and then go investigate what's going on. You want to make sure that you have let me go back to that one. The CO monitors in multiple spaces. Even if you have a full electric house, you still want carbon monoxide detectors because you have a car, and you typically have a garage, and you typically have a propane grill on the back deck. They're so inexpensive. You can get the CO monitors with the fire detectors, and the little lady on the machine will tell you it's CO or tell you there's a fire. So it's good to have them in multiple places. Who has a gas water heater or who has an electric water heater?
Yes.
Gas?
Yeah.
Gas. Has anybody done this? Please no. No. Please no. And the reason you don't want to do it, go look at your water heater. And the water heater has that little cap where all the fumes are coming up. If you look at the top and you see any kind of rusting or melting, that means you need to get that thing treated, repaired, because it should be flowing clear. If the reason why this is not a good idea is because there's heat here and gas here, and that's a blanket that can go up in flames. So if you are going to insulate, if you insulate your water heater, your gas water heater, put it just around the cylinder, not up close to the top, not close to the bottom. Better yet, if you, and I'm going to tell you because I am the building analyst and these are combustion appliances. If you go to change out, you can go to an electric water heater, or you can go to a point of use water, which is a tankless water heater. So you're not percolating it. A water heater is just a percolator. It sits in the tank and it percolates water, then it drops down, it percolates again, and it drops down. On an electric one, you can completely blanket it. So you're holding it in, so the periods between it percolating are fewer and far between. If you're, I'm not going to change my water heater, I understand why that's not safe, you can insulate your pipes. If you have and they're made out of copper and they sit side by side. So if they're sitting side by side, your water heater is on and you're trying to heat the bathroom on the 3rd floor, this pipe coming out of the water heater has to get hot until that part gets hot, and it makes its way all the way up. That's why when you turn the water heater on, it's cold, or you turn the water on upstairs, it's cold until the hot water heats its way. It's coming out hot, but it heats the pipes as it goes off. If these two are side by side, this is coming out at 100 and this is sitting at your basement temperature, which is 65, that pipe is going to want to heat that pipe. So you insulate the hot water pipes as much of the hot water pipe as you can see in the basement space. You want to give a foot from where it comes out of the tank to, what'd I do?
That's a V-board, you just tap it and that'll go away? Yeah.
Okay. You want to take a foot away from where it comes out of the tank and then insulate as much of that pipe that's for hot water. Those are issues. This one needs no. So that's where your monitors are. Here's a very interesting fact for our region, and I don't know if you guys know this, whether you're going to sell your house in 1 year, in 10 years, or it's going to go into the estate and somebody else is going to sell it. If you do any of these features, like you put in a new water heater, or you put in a new furnace, or you put in insulation, keep track of all of this, because this increases your resale value of 20%, and there's a huge shift on green, people looking for homes that are green. They're looking for homes that are smart. They're looking for homes that have energy efficiency. And you can't just say, yeah, my home's energy efficient. Well, how do I know? Because my utility bills are low. Well, you could be sitting in the dark with a blanket on. That's how your utility bills could be low. So if you do anything, track it. And if you are interested, the website is just Google up Energy Green Features Checklist. That's it. Those are the terms. Who loves solar? I love solar. On my house, they wanted to charge me $38,000 for solar before I replaced the roof. I did not have a good rate of return, so I didn't do solar. In other situations, like, I don't know if you saw Margot Wormsky from the Cincinnati Preservation Society. She's one of us. She did solar, and it made sense because her house had a smaller footprint. It made really good sense for her to get solar. So in any of these cities, Covington, Newport, Bellevue, they all recognize the need for solar, and so they have written it into their standards. Now, you can't put a big array in the front, but you can very easily tuck it to the back or kind of hide it a little bit, and it makes sense. If you get a proper rate of return. Hey, we have a banker in here that would love to finance this stuff. One thing that's hardly ever talked about is the landscaping and the passive solar things that you can do for your home. If you can't pick up your building and twist it so that the western sun isn't coming blazing through your front window in July. But what you can do is plant deciduous trees where they're going to block that sun in the summer, and then they're going to lose their leaves, and you get the sun gain in the winter. So there's a lot to be said around solar that are not, energy efficiency landscaping or passive solar concepts. There is even up to and including creating a space from your exterior wall and creating trellises and vines going up that trellis, and then you have created a thermal barrier for the heat and the cold.
That's cool.
Very cool. One last thing, if you guys are, if anybody's taking paint off their trim, please test. You can get this at Home Depot, and it's really easy. You can go onto the EPA and get a book to renovate right. You want to do a test. You want to protect yourself first. So nobody has a problem wearing a mask anymore. Nobody has a problem wearing gloves anymore. And when you score, you want to score and test at least 3 places in a home. If you're going and you take your little razor knife, and unless you use it for something else, and when you score to test, if you take it in one straight plane, you're going to go just straight to the back and you're not going to get a representation of the layers of paint that's on that trim. So you angle it. You angle that cut so you can get through those layers. And then you do a little dab, and you put the little dab of dew on here, and then the little test strip will show you if it's positive or negative. And then one good thing to do with this is always make sure that you're ready to clean it up and wrap it up, close it up, and take it out before you know. If you find that you have lead paint in one of those many layers, perhaps stripping it and going back to the natural wood, it's going to be really pricey. If you do it yourself, go online, get the tutorials, full Tyvek suit again, full negative pressure in the room, full dropping it over, so when you come out, you have a clean space where you can, and then you step out. And the reason, it's not just kids that can get lead poisoning. We definitely test kids when they're 2 and when they're 4 because it affects their development, but adults can be lead poisoned too. and it affects all sorts of things happening in there. That's why we do it. That's why we do the efficiencies, that's why we do the testing, that's why we wear gloves and masks, and we do it right. We do it smarter, not harder. You guys are so quiet.
After lunch.
That's right, I meant to say that. Do you have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have a house, my house has, the attic is basically third floor, unfinished. I mean, you could do living space, but it's not finished, and there's hardwood, it's almost like forest hardwood.
Uh-huh.
How do you insulate?
So is it all the way out to the roof? I used to call it a roof. And then somebody said, you just sound like a dog barking. So do you have anything, or is it just to the roof line?
Yeah. Mine's like that too.
What do you mean? I mean,
So
there's
you-
stairs, you can walk up there, we could finish it off, it could be additional living space.
Right, but when you look up, do you see the nails that are coming from the roof?
Yes.
Okay, so that can be or do you see the framing members from the roof? So you could do a couple different things. You could end up with a foam between those pieces of wood to insulate it and then drywall it. But you have to be very careful. That carries a lot of weight and it carries moisture because it's a liquid that has to dry. And then you want to make sure that you get the proper fire rating. So there's a lot associated with it. Or you can use polystyrene, which is the pink board, shove it up into that place, into the space, and then get to the proper rated drywall.
Or we can, is there no way just to put covered on the floor?
If you want to use it as a living space to insulate it, you're going to need to insulate that roof line.
Okay, otherwise we can just insulate.
You could insulate the floor, but that's of value to the space below you, not that space.
Right,
Yep.
if we wanted to.
Yes.
Finish it off, we could do it.
Yes, if you're trying to insulate that floor, you can put, this kind of stuff can be pumped into the floor members, framing members, but you have to drill a hole into that wood and pipe a tube into it and then pack it. You should know mathematically how much goes into that space. It's a mathematical calculation. But then that will also have a noise that it'll drop down the noise. So it'll make any kind of noise that's happening up there or down there, minimize it. So that's a good thing. Does anybody have recessed cans in their bathroom? So on the second floor or first floor?
No, both.
So typically if you have a recessed can on the second floor, these chairs don't slide, that can is going right into that attic plane. So you can become more energy efficient by removing that light, removing that beauty ring, and putting an LED retrofit kit in there. So it changes from a 30 or 60 watt bulb down to probably an 11 watt bulb. There used to have this slide about life cycle costs and benefits, but since the price of LEDs has come down so dramatically, this has not been redone. You replace a light bulb, take those can lights out, retrofit it with an LED, caulk it, you will never have to change that light bulb again, and you're not going to move that air. It will stop that air from the attic coming into your living space. Plus, you never get to use it again, have to do it again. Does anybody ever get these things from Duke? This is only electricity. This is only talking about electricity. Oh, you're so efficient, you're so efficient. They don't know, again, you could sit in the dark. And this is not so don't read this as a real representation of how good you're doing, because it's really just a partial representation. When we were doing retrofits on these cans, when we first started doing it, because we replaced tons of weight value. We replaced many of these. They were they started out like $60 a can. And the price point has dropped down so much that we don't even try to sell them anymore. We say it's not even, you can go do that yourself because it's so easy and the price point is so low. And it makes a huge difference. What else do I have to show up here? In your book, I'm sure in your book you have these things. 6 things about energy efficiency in historic homes. And I also wrote one about ways to cut your utility bill. I believe it's in your book.
Is it a loose paper in our book?
No, it's
Oh.
it's stapled or taped. If you can't find it, I have a whole bunch of them up here.
Easy ways to cut your utility bill. Okay, got it. It's short.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, question for you. I just paid to have my house exterior painted this past week. And I'm walking outside and I see all these little paint chips where they've scraped everything. And you brought up the lead paint thing, I'm thinking all three.
That's a huge remediation if anybody catches you.
Nobody heard that.
No, what happened, what stays, even though we're live, what stays here, what we're talking about in here stays in here. But you can, yeah, it's an issue. It's a potential issue. And you would end up having to dig it up and dispose of it properly.
Yes, the box cutters, I look out the window, I can see just layers of scraping.
I would just test, because you don't know. We can think positively, right? Right. Let's think positively. We have time.
And if that's, let's say it does test lead, that there's lead in the paint, would he like take a shop vac and vacuum that up, or how does he get rid of it out of the box cutter?
If that's the case, first of all, you make sure that you tie back up. You can shop back it up if you have a canister that has a bag with it, because you're pulling it into a sealed container, and then seal it up, and then seal it up. Yep. Or it's like people, I can't be worried about that. We have 9 minutes. Maybe I talk too fast.
I have a question about when you're redoing your attic, is living space, so it's like designed that way, just like you mentioned. So you've seen like where people have redone too much of the attic without leaving, so everything becomes a closet. Everything becomes, so there's no spaces that you don't want to redo the, what do you call them? Yeah, the niche, we just leave that as raw attic space rather than.
So think about where you're aligning your thermal and pressure boundaries. If you want to use all of that as living space, then you have to align it both. But if not, there it is. Come on. So if not, this becomes your thermal and pressure boundary, this becomes your thermal and pressure boundary, while this is your roof line. It's this one. It's in here. But know that yes, you can keep that knee wall.
Okay, but otherwise, like, should you keep that knee wall instead of like just sheetrocking the entire space?
I would keep, for me personally, I would keep the knee wall because you can use that for storage. As long as you know that that storage is quasi in the outside space, but you're not going to see, you're not going to see. Yeah, you don't need air exchange in there. So whatever you have in there, wrap it in plastic so it doesn't get moisture. Because you're going to get, where is it? There it is. Yeah, right through here. That's your thermal and pressure boundary, your roof line, your living space. great storage space. If you have children, that's where you hide the presents. They're not gonna go into that. They're not going in there.
Thank you very much. This is
Well,
awesome.
thank you guys. You were so quiet. You must have had a big lunch, good lunch. Thank you. I have been privileged to be part of this right from the beginning. The very first year was when they had the tornado in Prine in the Kentucky community of Prine. 10 years ago. Piner, yes. I'm from over the river.
But you had the letters right. Like, this is Wordle, you would have been pretty good.
Yeah,
Right?
I did Wordle once, and I think I got it within
We're hooked now.
3 times.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys, and thank you for being a part of this event. This is our first time back in 3 years, and we're so excited to see you.
Yeah.
And just give me a call if there's anything I can do for you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
As I say in yoga, we are complete.